Hey YouTube, what's up? It's CS back here with another installment, and here's my review for UFC on Fuel TV, Munoz versus Weidman. Alright guys, well what did you think of that free card? You know, it was alright in my opinion, could have been worse. Some exciting fights here and there. The main card I thought was pretty good, so yeah, let's just get to it, starting with the main event between Chris Weidman and Mark Munoz in middleweight division. Alright guys, who did you have winning this one? I went with Chris Weidman all day. The guy's a little bit more athletic, a little bit more fluid on the feet. And I thought Mark Munoz, defensive wrestling was just not a good look in MMA. You know, sure, he can beat you in a wrestling match. He's one of the more decorated guys out there with a collegiate wrestling career. It's just his transitions, although he does transition a lot in his MMA game, are just not fluid in my opinion, you know. The guy striking with Chris Weidman in 1 second, getting taken down the next, you know. I think I specifically said this in my prediction video that I thought Chris Weidman was going to win this game in transition. For the most part, he did, you know, because he was able to bring the fight down to where he wanted. And then when Mark Munoz was able to get back up, you know, again, I did say Weidman's striking was better, and we saw it. I didn't know it was that much better. Him being able to knock Munoz down with an elbow, cut him, like, damn, that was an elbow from hell. And of course, Josh Rosenthal with a late-ass stoppage because Chris Weidman had Mark Munoz arm trap. Munoz couldn't defend when he was on the ground, and he was taking just a bunch of shots to the head, blood leaking everywhere. That was a nasty and nice win for Chris Weidman, so props to him for doing his thing. I didn't think he would be able to finish Mark Munoz because Munoz is tough as hell. But for him to be able to do that, that's boss. So, yeah, really flashy win by Chris Weidman. What's next for him? I don't know. You know, he wants Anderson Silva. I understand that. But I'm not sure if other people want him to face Anderson Silva just yet after, you know, Anderson looked, you know, relatively impressive against Chael Sonnen. So maybe Chris Weidman versus Hector Lombard after he's done with Tim Boetsch. Or maybe Chris Weidman versus Michael Bisping. And then you could hype a contender after that. Who knows? As for Mark Munoz, you know, he has to go back to the drawing board. He's coming off an L. Maybe him versus Chael Sonnen. I'd like to see that match go down still. Maybe him versus Smart Polaris. I don't know. Munoz, you can make a lot of matchups for him. I actually wouldn't mind Chris Weidman versus Alan Belcher either. So yeah, middleweight division is kind of exciting right now. So I'm looking forward to what can go down in it. But props, Chris Weidman. Mad props. Second round TKO for him over Mark Munoz. But now let's move on to that co-main event, light heavyweight matchup between James Tahuna and Joey Beltron. People are expecting a 3-round slugfest or an early knockout. We got a 3-round slugfest in the form of Joey Beltron getting on the short end of the stick this time. Like usual, James Tahuna is just, you know, a stronger puncher. He's a better athlete. Yeah, what else do you want me to say? Of course he won. He was a little bit more aggressive. Beltron, you know, he tried to come out there and do his thing, you know, throw on a show. Fans like to see it. Yeah, it's whatever, you know. He just goes in there, gets his ass whooped against some of these guys like James Tahuna. James Tahuna, you know, orthodox fighter, setting up his right hand all day, you know, so like, holy crap, that was coming over the top all the time, and Beltron was just getting hit with it all day, and James Tahuna would come in with small combinations here and there, and Beltron was just taking him like a soldier. So yeah, Beltron has a hell of a chin. You know, he moved down to light heavyweight. The weight cut went good. I thought he would suffer an early round knockout because of this. I didn't think it was going to go good. And James Tahuna hits like a dump truck, but Beltron proved that he still has a chin. So yeah, that was crazy. I thought, you know, LeVar Johnson might have softened him up as well. So that's why I picked James Tahuna via an early finish. But James Tahuna, you know, he still hit him with everything but a brick house. But, you know, he couldn't put Joey Beltron away. Don't matter. He still won 30-26, 30-27, 30-27. But yeah, he kind of gassed at the end. And I think Tahuna would be a more respectable prospect if he had a gas tank. However, with what he has, I think it's undeniable that he can hit the top 10 for sure. It just depends if he gets those opponents or not. Joey Beltron, though, getting a win over him, I think is a step in the right direction. What's next for James Tahuna? I don't know. Maybe him versus the winner of Glover Teixeira and Rampage Jackson. I think that could make sense. I'm just saying, James Tahuna, he has some wins as of late. I think it's about time he gets some respectable opponent. Who knows? There are some guys out there in the 205 division still. We'll see. As for Joey Beltron, you know, he's going to be a free card guy. We know what to expect from Joey Beltron. He's going to be on these Fuel NFX cards. People like to see that cat, so look forward to seeing him there. Now let's move on to that welterweight debut of Aaron Simpson against Kenny Robertson. Of course, this fight did have some stand-up here and there, but Aaron Simpson's wrestling, of course, made the difference. Again, Kenny Robertson really not as good as Aaron Simpson anywhere, so when that kind of fighter faces Aaron Simpson, who's so intent on using his wrestling, will use his wrestling and be successful with it. That's what we saw. So it's a solid win for Aaron Simpson in his welterweight debut. Good for him to get his weight cut down really well. Apparently he switched from vegetarian to vegan, and he only had to seriously cut 3 pounds for this fight. So, you know, that's sick. You know, he already looked like a small-ass middleweight, and, you know, for him to make welterweight that easily, you know, that's good. So, I don't know what to say for Aaron Simpson now. You know, he'd be a hell of a prospect. Not a hell of a prospect, but a respectable one if he was like maybe 10 years younger. So I'm not sure what he can get rolling into the welterweight division at his age. There's a lot of young bulls, a lot of young wrestlers there. We'll see if he can hang with them. Maybe him versus I don't know. Name a generic welterweight wrestler. There's lots of them. Rick Story. I don't know. There's a bunch of matchups you can make for Aaron Simpson. As for Kenny Robertson, he's regional level stuff. Maybe a King of the Cage champion kind of level kind of guy. And that's about it. So he's probably cut again. But now let's move on to that middleweight matchup between Francis Carmont and Carlos Vemola. Yeah, Carlos Vemola, him and his hyped up Czech national wrestling champion shit. No. Definitely wasn't enough for Francis Carmont. Francis Carmont, more athletic, won the fight in transition. You know, Vemola actually tried to use his wrestling in this fight instead of getting taken down and going for guillotines. He had a guillotine attempt on Francis Carmont. However, Francis Carmont, you know, he was technical enough to get out of that. You know, he ain't dumb enough to get caught in that and get submitted by it, and it wasn't close at all. And eventually, Carmont scrambled to the point where he had Vemola's back and his arm caught, like, right here and shit, and he was able to, like, just choke him out, rear naked choke. Nice win for Francis Carmont. I don't know what's next for him. You know, maybe him versus Konstantinos Philippou. That would be an exciting matchup. You know, both those guys weren't taken to become middleweight prospects, and you don't have to call them middleweight prospects either. They just have some nice wins together. They're kind of in the same place in the division, if you ask me. Maybe Costa's a little bit higher, but I think that matchup might make sense. As for Vemola, I'd cut him. You know, I've had enough of this guy. Just can't even win in middleweight. How many fucking divisions do you have to move down? Of course, he has that win over Mike Macenzio, but that's Mike Macenzio. He's inconsistent as hell. You know, Francis Carmont, not even that great of a middleweight, can't even beat him. So who do you put Vemola up against now? You know, since he is from the Czech Republic and no one else is from there, they probably give him another fight, and if he loses that, then they'll cut him. But yeah, again, Francis Carmont, freak athleticism for the win. Now let's move on to that bantamweight matchup between TJ Dillashaw and Vaughn Lee. TJ Dillashaw can wrestle. That's what made this fight, you know what I'm saying? Vaughn Lee, ill-advised, throw a head kick. TJ Dillashaw ducked under it, took him down, and proceeded to take his back and eventually got that rear naked choke in round 1. Easy win for TJ Dillashaw. Vaughn Lee, solid, you know, offensive submission grappler, but with TJ Dillashaw going after his back, you know, he pretty much had no chance. That was it. So TJ Dillashaw, you know, systematically took that in X amount of minutes. So nice win for TJ Dillashaw. What's next for him in bantamweight? Bantamweight's an exciting ass division. There's a lot of guys you can pair Dillashaw up against. Him versus Alex Caceres, I think, would be a fun fight. So I'd like to see that, actually. Yeah, I legit actually want to see that. You know, one guy can wrestle, sure, but Alex Caceres is just too hard to keep down. His submission defense has improved, and he's really offensive with his guard. So yeah, I'd like to see Alex Caceres versus TJ Dillashaw. But now let's move on to that lightweight matchup between Rafael dos Anjos and Anthony Njokuani. This kicked off the main card. Yeah, dos Anjos, he put up a good fight against Njokuani. Got the decision in the end. Just did a lot more wrestling than Njokuani did standing up. You know, and when it was standing up, dos Anjos, of course, with his newfound kickboxing skills as of 3 or 4 fights ago, you know, he was able to hang with Njokuani, not totally getting dominated there. Njokuani a little bit more comfortable on his feet, we could tell, but dos Anjos was in his face. And again, some guys, you know, dos Anjos his kickboxing kind of looks really nasty. For example, him versus George Sotiropoulos. But when it was on the ground, and Joe Kwani actually impressed me with his defense. You know, he's a really athletic dude, and you know, he had the stuff to get back up against certain guys back before when he was getting tapped by him. But now he has a technical know-how to get back up with that athleticism, and he showed that in this Dos Anjos fight. He would pop right back up to his feet when Dos Anjos had his back or some shit, bringing him down with some sort of suplex. So solid job by Anthony Njokuani there, but his downfall is, guys, is that offensively all he has to offer is standing up, which is sad because he's a freak athlete in the lightweight division. So if he developed his other skills elsewhere, he might be one hell of a prospect, but he most likely won't. So he'll be one of those lightweight gatekeepers, and Dos Anjos just got by him. And Dos Anjos, I thought, was going to be one of those gatekeepers, but maybe he has a shot at becoming, you know, a legit top 15 lightweight. He needs to face more wrestlers to see if, you know, he can crack the top 10 even. You know, last time he faced a wrestler, Gleason Tebow, you know, he kind of got, you know, muscled around. But, you know, maybe he made some adjustments. I know he's getting used to that new frame of his. Of course, he used to be skinny as hell, but he's a bigger guy now in the lightweight division. So I like to see what he can do up against some of those roughhousers. So we'll see. You know, should be exciting for Dos Anjos. As for Njokuani, again, I think he'll remain as a gatekeeper. But now let's move on to the preliminary card and run through it really fast, starting with Alex Caceres and Damacio Page in bantamweight division. Again, since Alex Caceres picked up this victory, I want to see him versus TJ Dillashaw. I think that would be fun. But yeah, when Alex Caceres, on paper, even fights smarter than Damacio Page, then that's just sad, you know. So because of that, I had to go with Caceres because I already thought he was technically better than Page everywhere and a little bit more athletic. So yeah, why should he lose that fight? Damacio Page looked horribly lately, especially when it comes to guys who know submissions. Fucking triangle, you know. Why are guys getting caught in triangles by Alex Caceres nowadays? Not a good look, but solid win for Alex Caceres. I still think he has some promise. Next up, flyweight matchup between Chris Carrioso and Josh Ferguson. Carrioso better everywhere, couldn't finish, unanimous decision. Andrew Craig versus Rafael Natal. Now, I missed from this fight and on earlier. Apparently, this was a funny fight because Natal was talking smack or like taunting Craig and then got knocked out by a head kick. And apparently, he had a darn good first round in Natal. So, yeah, he got clocked in round 2 when there was 8 seconds left. That's funny. So, solid win for Andrew Craig. Marcelo Gomares in the welterweight division over Dan Stitkin. Apparently, that was a close fight. Apparently, Marcelo Gomares tried to hulk up at the end, too. If you guys want to let me know what happened there, please do so in the comment section below. But yeah, whatever. Nice win for Gomares. I picked him. Can't hate. And Rafael Assunção via a TKO finish in round 2 over Issei Tamura. That makes sense. He's pretty much better everywhere if I remember well who Rafael Assunção is. Yeah, he's the guy who lost Uriah Faber. So yeah, he's definitely better than Tamura everywhere. Tamura, wrestler with some heavy hands. And yeah, apparently Assunção schooled him. So nice win for him. And yeah, I think that about does it for my review of UFC on Fuel TV, Munoz versus Weidman. Again, it was a decent free card overall, in my opinion. Again, I did miss those first 3 preliminary card matchups, but again, please tell me what you thought of those in the comment section below. I thought of my review and the event in general in the comment section below as well. And there it is in general, guys. Again, sorry for the late ass review, but hey, better late than never. I've just been real busy as of late, so that's why I'm getting this to you guys out so late. But yeah, hopefully you guys catch me for Strike Force, Rockhold versus Kennedy. That should be fun. Hopefully I can get that video out real soon, and I'll see you then. So, deuces for all my supporters, bruises for all my haters. Thanks again for supporting, and take care.